with people, I mean lots of people, and you're having this great effect on people, and then the difference between that and writing. I mean, and you spend a lot of time alone writing. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the way your books come to be. I mean, you have the idea that we were talking about, and then you work with a writer's group, or you have a writer's workshop. So how does that help you get started, sort of branching out into what you want to write?
So often, a lot of it begins really out in the world. And a couple of years ago, I was here in town for the promotion of the Choke movie. And I spent a lot of time with Sam Rockwell. And we were having lunch once, and he was talking about filming the Jesse James movie in Winnipeg with Brad Pitt. And he stopped at some point, and he got very self-conscious. And he sort of shakes his head, and he goes, "Oh, Christ, listen to me. I'm just blah, 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 Brad Pitt, blah, 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 Brad Pitt." He goes, "It sounds like I have some kind of name-dropping form of Tourette syndrome." And that statement was so dead on, perfect, and clever that it will forever change how I perceive of name-dropping. That now it does kind of sound like those animal sounds you hear looping in the back of Hollywood movies. Well, you know that parrot because you've heard that parrot in 1,000 movies. And you know that hyena. You've heard that. It's the same hyena. It's been dead for 100 years.
I think of the laugh track on I Love Lucy, and there's always the same sounds each episode.
Yeah. But, so the Genesis idea typically comes from other people in social settings. And then I developed the idea by taking it to other groups, subsequent groups of people. And in the case of Knock Knock, I basically, everyone I encountered, I said, "Tell me a monstrous joke you learned in second grade that you didn't understand," until you told it to your mother and she slapped you. And it gave me this sort of social game to play with people. And so all these people brought me these horrific jokes, and most of which I didn't use, some of which I did use. And it's really only in the third stage, after the Genesis idea from people, developing the theme with people, that I put it together and I take it for beta testing to workshop. And I tell it in workshop to see if people spontaneously either laugh or weep or groan, to get that, it's kind of not intellectual, but to get that very instant emotional reaction and see where the laughs are, see where the laughs land. And that's how I kind of hone it at the end to try to make it work as effectively as possible. But the entire process is almost entirely a social process, like taking a show, some sort of a stage show on the road, and perfecting it before you bring it into larger markets.
Writing songs at the last minute because you have to change things based on audience reaction.
Exactly. Yeah.
So my last question, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. Is that the next step? I'm not sure if there's another blow-up doll or something that has to come in. A student of mine at Hunter was so excited that I was doing this, and she had just read Choke, and her question, she wanted to know, each of your books has a kind of twist to the end, as does this one, and are those twists something that you think about before you begin, or is that something that as you're writing it, it comes to you? Do you know the ending, in other words, before you begin, or does it just somehow flow naturally and you always just come up with that complete turnabout?
I never know what that twist is going to be. I never know what that sort of third act reveal is going to be. I typically know what it is that the character does in order to achieve affection, to get their emotional needs met covertly. That how they've learned to be in the world that will make people like them. And when I was little, I learned that if I could be funny or be smart, people would like me. And so I just worked really hard to be funny or smart, doing it and doing it and doing it. But around the age 30, you realize you're stuck. You're stuck being that funny person Or you're stuck being that really pretty person, because that's another way you can do it. Or you're stuck being that really smart person, or you're stuck being that bully, or you're stuck being that sick person. Oh my God, ask me how I am. Oh, I've got such a pain. That you've learned this way of being, but you realize that you're going to be stuck being that way for the rest of your life. And it's not all of you, it's just kind of like a way you've learned of presenting yourself for affection. And at that point you either throw it away, destroy it, and learn a new way to be, a fuller way to be, or you go on being that funny, really bitter person who realizes they're stuck being the funny person. So at that point you become Paul Lynde, you know.